The woman picked up a screwdriver and plunged it into the broken glass on the car roof. The next second, muddy slurry started to pour down through the hole in the car roof. The woman was terrified when she saw the scene. She quickly used a tissue to block the hole in the roof. Although the mud no longer fell, the oxygen in the car gradually decreased. She picked up her phone and called her husband for help, but she didn't know that all of this was part of her husband's scheme. 3 days ago, her husband, in order to take control of her company's assets, had conspired with his mistress to deceive the woman into going under a landslide. They left the woman there and went back to the office. In front of the media, the man pretended to be distraught, using the excuse of a potential secondary landslide to stop the company staff and rescue teams from going up the mountain. He claimed that he would go up to rescue his wife after the rain stopped. The woman woke up to find herself buried under a mudslide. Luckily, the car's light could still be turned on. The glass of the sunroof was crushed by the mud and was about to fall off. Water started to flow in. The woman quickly used duct tape to seal the hole. The mud no longer poured in. The woman thought about what had happened and realized that her husband and his mistress wanted her dead. She was unwilling to die like this. She had to find a way to survive. Even though the water dripping from under the car was too dirty to swallow, the woman still used her mouth to catch the water dripping from below. This was her hope of survival. She used the remaining bottle to catch the dripping water, thinking about how her parents and loved ones would be heartbroken, but she fainted in a daze. When the woman woke up again, the water had already filled half of the bottle. She reminded herself not to sleep, as she might never wake up if she did. She had to find a way to continue surviving. At that moment, the woman began to feel short of breath, which was due to the lack of oxygen inside the car. She had to find a way to let air in, or she would die from suffocation. She found a screwdriver in the car trunk, then used the screwdriver to pry at the sunroof glass, and forced it through. As a result, muddy slurry poured down from the roof. She quickly used a tissue to block the hole, but this did not solve the oxygen problem inside the car. Then she thought of the steel rods on the chair. She dismantled all the steel rods from the chair, used a bottle cap to seal the top of the steel rod, then aimed the rod at the car roof and pushed it out. This was to try and bring fresh air into the car, to prevent herself from dying from lack of oxygen. She pushed the steel rod out with all her strength. At first, it was relatively easy, and she managed to push half of the rod out. So the woman took another rod, used duct tape to seal the joints, then carefully continued pushing it upwards, fearing that the joints would misalign. She didn't dare to push too hard, and could only push it up slowly, little by little. Then came the third rod. Using the same method with duct tape, she pushed it upwards, but she found that even with the 3 rods combined, they were still only 1.5 meters long, and the steel rods still didn't reach the dirt outside. The woman had no idea how deep she was buried. She could only try adding the 4th rod, but it wasn't as easy as before. Despite using all her strength, it felt like the steel rod was being blocked by a stone and wouldn't move. The woman could only push harder, but ended up injuring her hand badly. She used her bag as a cushion, then pushed with all her might, determined to move the stone blocking the way, or she would die here. After numerous failed attempts, on her last try, the steel rod finally pushed through. She could clearly feel that the hole was open. The woman used a wire to remove the bottle cap from the top of the rod, and finally breathed in the fresh air from outside. In that moment, being alive felt like the greatest gift. The woman breathed in the precious air with all her might, grateful to be able to live another day. She tried to shout for help, but no matter how hard she screamed, there was no response. By now, 3 days had passed, and the phone's last bit of battery was about to run out. Although there was air, there was no food. She had no idea how much longer she could survive. So she lit a tissue with her lighter, letting the smoke from the burning tissue rise through the steel rod. This would make it easier for the rescue team to find her. Even though the burning air inside made it harder for her to breathe, she still hoped the people outside would see the signal she was sending.